Hi, today we will be converting an MVVM app into MVI architecture step by step. Before we begin, let's quickly recap the existing MVVM app that we have built in the previous video. Alright, so the base code of this MVVM app is available in the description down below. You can clone it from there. In this architecture, the data flows from model and then to view model and then to view. When user clicks on some button, this action is sent to the view model. The view model updates the loading and then send this action to the repository, which is a model. So repository sends the required model back to the view model and then view model updates this to the view. Let's look up how the existing app works. First, when user clicks on the button, this will give us the randomly generated drink. So now let's move on to MVI. MVI strictly enforces unidirectional data flow, making it simpler and more predictable. That means users' action are then converted into the intent as an input state to the view model, and view model returns the model back to the view in the form of another updated state, which is then rendered and displayed to the user. In this model, the user's action is converted into the intent as a form of input state, and then view model returns that model in the form of new state to the view, which is then displayed or rendered to the user. Alright, so let's start the conversion. First of all, we need to identify what are the user actions in this app. So the only user action in this app is to get the drink, that is button. So when the user clicks on this button, this action needs to be converted into an intent and pass it to the view model. So let's create such an intent. Create a new Java class and let's call it user intent, and let's make it enum. And now the user intent is to suggest the drink. So first of all, here we have a suggest drink, and now we need to pass it to the view model. So let's go to the view model and create a new method which will accept this user intent. The method will be void on user intent, and it will get user intent. So in this method, we need to create a switch statement, or we can use if statement. Case is suggest string. When user sends an intent for suggested in the drink, we need to call this method suggest string, and then back to the main activity. Replace this with on user intent. Here the intent is to suggest the drink. So we have completed the user actions intent part. In the suggest drink method, the first state is to pass the loading state to the main activity, and then we have to call the repository to get the drink. When we have the drink, we need to update the new state to the main activity, which is remove the loading and show the data to the user. So in that case, we have to create a new UI state. So this needs to be a model. So let's create a Java class for this. This will be UI state. So the first thing is we need to add a new state, that is loading state. So we can use loading, and let's make it a default value false. And then we have an error. So the error could be with the string. So that means that we have an error here, that is an empty initially, and then after that we have data. So the data is a drink, that should be a model. Okay, so we can call it like data is equal to null, and then we have to create a new constructor for this UI state. So remember, in the start I said that every time view model should send a state, it should be a new state. So for this purpose, let's create a new copy method to create a new copy of using the existing state, and we can change the variables in that. So let's create a method for this which will be returning a UI state, and the method will be copy. And first of all we have to pass the loading, which can be a new loading state. So in this one we have to return a new UI state. So this should get the new UI state with the existing error and data. So let's create a method for this, and then we have an this dot error, and passing this dot data, and create a constructor for this one, and then we have to create a fields for all of these. So this is the case uh, for this loading update state. And now we have to update the state of this one, which is to update the loading state as well as update the data. Copy this one, and now we have to pass the data along with this. Okay, so this data needs to be passed here like so. The last thing is, in case of an error, we need to update the UI with the error along with the loading state. Let's copy this one, and this should be the same as this, and now we have an error. So error will be this, and we have to pass the data which is already exist in this class. So here we need to create a new mutable live data for this one, and which is a UI state, and then we have a MUI state mutable data, and then we have new mutable live data. And in this one initially we have to pass the default UI state, which is this one. Now we have a default values in this mutable live data, and also remember I have told that this state should be immutable for the view. So let's make it an immutable state. We have to create a live data for this, which is an immutable value, which is a UI state, and this should be get UI state, and then we have to return MUI state. Now we have to update the new state with this loading. Okay, So this will be UI state post value. This should be a new UI state. So let's get the existing state from this data. Get value. For passing the loading, we have to pass the new value to true, that it is a loading. And then after that, update this two states. We have to pass it with the loading equal to false, and then we have a string. We can remove these ones, and also we have to use it like so for this one, and which is uh, an error that needs to be passed. So this can be, we can remove this here, and everything can be the same. Okay, so what about these ones? We can safely remove these ones and this one also. And here is also another advantage of using the MVI is that we can only make this method as public and we can make these methods as private. So this can't be accessed from the view, and this should be accessed. And going on this one, and now we have to create a new observable for that. Get UI state observe this one, and in here we have to check for all of the states. Now we have to check if in the UI state we have loading equal to true, we have to show the progress bar to the user, which is view dot visible. And else, if there is no loading, we have to make it gone. So the next thing is we have to check the error state is not empty. Then we have to show some kind of message to the user, which can be creating a new toast, which is an error. And then if there is no error, we have to show the data to the user. So the data is shown like so. So we can use the existing data, like it is a drink, and we have to get it from the UI state like so. And we can safely remove these from. All right. So this is completed with the main view model is returning the new UI states every time to the view model, to the view, and view is sending the intents to the view model, and everything else will be the same. So let's run the application. At this stage we have to check if the drink is not null, that we have to pass it to this one. User clicks on the button, so the loading is shown to the user and then data is displayed. Loading is removed. We have now successfully converted the MVVM app into MVI architecture. I hope this video is helpful. Please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.